Okay. Good enough. All right. Good morning, everyone. I see we still have a few more people joining in. I'll get us started while people are getting settled. So I am calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It's 11:16 on March 27, 2024, and I'm Barbara Neal. As a reminder, the recording or the meeting is being recorded, and that recording will be posted to the task force webpage following the meeting. Let's start with a roll call of task force members. If you could verbally acknowledge your presence when I call your name. Jen Morrison.
I'm here.
Morning. Paul White.
I am here. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I was having difficulty with my computer, but I think I got it fixed. I'm here.
Okay, morning. Let's see, Mike Dunges. I see Mike on the list, but I'm not hearing him. I'll go on to Jim Mack.
Here.
And Mike Dunges, can you hear us now?
Yep, sorry, I'm having internet issues. I apologize.
Okay. Good morning, Mike. I believe that is it for task force members at this point. Also joining us is Callie Audette as our administrative support, and one of our two partners at Televate, Dom Arcuri, is here this morning, and our system planning project manager from Mission Critical, Rance Duffy, is also on the line. So welcome, everybody. Let's see, members of the public that are present. Kim Cheney, would you like to introduce yourself? You're muted, Kim.
Kim Cheney, live in Montpelier, former board member of the Vermont Public Safety Authority in Barre and Montpelier.
Morning. And I have someone listed as unknown user. Is that you, Stephen?
It is, thanks.
Morning, Stephen. Okay. And I see that Rick Burke from Televate has joined us. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, everyone.
All right. We are ready to get going. So let's start with approval of the agenda. The agenda was distributed last week, I believe, is also available on our website. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we will consider that approved and move on to approval of the minutes. So we have two sets of minutes to approve. First is from the regular meeting number 21 on March 13th. Are there any changes needed to these minutes? Okay, hearing none, let's take a look at the minutes from the special meeting number 16 on March 20th. Any changes needed to these minutes? Okay. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as published.
Second that.
Thank you. Any
I assume
discussion?
I assume that's for both sets at once.
Yes, both.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as listed on the agenda, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye. You see all hands are up except Mike, is your hand up?
Mike D was up. Yes, he raised his
Mike
hand. and
Dunges was that. Okay,
Yep.
sorry, I missed that. All right, those minutes then are approved. And let's move on to next agenda item is public comment. We typically limit this to 10 minutes. Stephen, would you like to start?
Yeah, I want to inquire as to the progress on getting an attorney, and I want to call to the attention of the task force members that a public records request has dragged on and on for a copy of the work plan which clearly Televate didn't produce, but that Mission Critical is reported to have produced. But a request for that made more than a week ago has still not produced a work plan or the copy of the contract or a copy of the proposal. And this task force can no longer rely on expedient public records request processing from the Department of Public Safety's attorneys. You need your own attorney on board to honor public records law, because hopefully y'all will have more diligence than the Department of Public Safety on this matter. So that's my main concern right now, because I'm ill prepared to comment informedly if I still haven't been provided access to the key documents. And I would remind all of y'all task force members that you are appointed officials, public officials, and accountable to the people who serve you, which means returning phone calls and remaining accessible to those of us who do the hard work to participate in this process.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Kim Cheney, would you like to comment? You're muted, Kim.
Yep, figure out when I'm not. Is that working now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. It says I'm muted when I look at my screen. I just want to thank Barbara Neal and Mr. Duffy for sending me a written answer in part to the questions I asked last week. It was very responsive and I appreciate it. I've sent a response to Barbara Neal and she may or may not want to share that with the task force. But thank you for your interest in my issues so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kim. I see no other members of the public, so we'll move away from public comment now on to project updates, and I will hand this off to Dom for those.
Thanks, Barb. Yes, we had quite a bit of activity over the last couple of weeks, as we know from those that attended. The system planning vendor, Mission Critical Partners, is fully on board. We held a kickoff meeting with MCP last week. They updated their internal project plan and schedule per their requirements once the contract was complete. We have incorporated those changes and updated the overall project plan and schedule to include the tasks and functions of MCP and their schedule. So that is all up to date, and we provided a updated project plan reflecting that. MCP and Televate have met to discuss coordination activities to make sure we have the process set for ongoing updates to schedule and project status, etc. So we will be doing that on a regular basis and providing those updates to the task force members. Also, we distributed the first version of the stakeholder updates document. That was our March version. So that has been published or distributed. We also developed a draft project frequently asked questions FAQ document. That initial draft was developed and some comments received. We provided an updated draft, so that is in process. We've also updated the current list of dispatch centers to prepare for some of the next steps. So what we anticipate for the next items are MCP is currently working on their project initiation, which includes the first major item is putting together an inventory schedule for them to develop their inventory report. And then that would be followed by their assessment schedule as well. We're hoping to get those in place over the next couple of weeks so we can accelerate the schedule as much as possible. We also need to provide an update to the stakeholder contact list to help with that assessment schedule. So that we'll be working on over the next couple of weeks. And the FAQ document that I mentioned, we anticipate publishing that within the next week or so in the next period. I think that's a summary. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Do task force members have any questions for Dom? Nope. Jen, you look like you were about to say something, but no? Okay. All right then. Well, thank you, Dom.
Hey,
Let's
Barb,
move-
I
if I
was-
may,
I was
I'm sorry.
go
actually
ahead.
trying to figure out why the updated project plan dated 3/20 had not made it to our website, but I I have found it in the fiery depths of my inbox and converted it to a PDF. So I will send it to Callie to put on the website.
Okay.
And Callie, send it to
Okay.
Mr. Whitaker, please.
May I ask a couple of questions regarding that? Sure. And then you all just respond to her, and the process is that once she hears approval, that she can just forward it out to the community. So we could, establish a process there.
I didn't quite catch all of that, Rick.
I think I understood
I'm
what he was
sorry,
asking is that
Okay.
I think that we've had an internal misunderstanding or we're not clear on that draft came to you and me and Paul, and I think Televate was looking for us to give a thumbs up to the updated draft, which incorporated the mission critical stuff. It was one of a couple of attachments in that email that day. I can say honestly that I have not read through the updates, so I give neither a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but the document does exist. So I think the question that they're asking is, do the chairs and the co-chair want to approve the content before it goes publicly, or are we just accepting it as an update? Because it is a living document. It has a change order sheet on the first page, tracking when we make updates. So as a living
That's
document,
correct.
does it need to be approved every time it pushes out? So
We're talking about the
Exactly.
status update, correct?
no. We're talking about the project.
The project plan.
The project
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah, the project plan is very comprehensive now. We have included in, what we've received from Mission Critical. And as Dom indicated in the email, the only missing piece right now is a schedule. And MC working on that schedule, their internal schedule. And so once they've completed that, we'll update it. But the project plan at this stage is complete minus the schedule, and that would be inserted. So we can either publish this version minus the schedule or hold off on schedule on what the schedule is done. We indicated in there the status of the schedule, and I'm comfortable in publishing it. I think, the community would be happy to see it, but we want to be sure that, the task force is happy with it. So that's really the question. Are you comfortable with it?
And the version that's currently on our website is dated 2/26 in Mark's draft, correct?
Right. This is a March 20th draft.
okay,
This came to
okay.
you, me and Barb last week.
Right.
Right.
And
And that has-
again, I had to go diving for it to find it. But I agree that we should push this out publicly because it's a living document. If
Yes.
we're not
Mhm.
happy with the content, that can be reflected back to Televate and updated when you do
Right.
the next update that includes the schedule from MCP. So I would encourage us to get this on our website and push it out for public review or input,
Right. That does, the version does have change tracking in it as well. So we probably want to accept those. And as you mentioned, Jen, put it in PDF format before putting it on the website.
Okay,
And
that's
we can
fair.
do that from our end
Yeah,
we
we-
can do
we
that
can
from our
certainly do
end if
that.
you'd like us to. Sure.
Yep, I think that makes sense. Let's get the changes accepted. Let's make it a PDF and let's push it out to the folks who normally attend, plus put it on our website.
Will do.
to get us caught
Right.
back up. And just Dom and Rick, for the record, if I don't reply in like 2 business days, it has slid
Yeah.
into a dark space in my inbox, and you
Yeah.
probably need to poke me.
Yeah, understood. So, Dom, the way we did it is that Dom provides a link to the document or provides the
Mhm.
document. So, we want to, providing a link gives you an easy way to get there. It doesn't fill up your inbox. We can do it both ways. We can provide the document and the link. That document is getting larger in terms of size, and I know there's always limits on the amount of megabits that you can hold on your Outlook. So we want to respect whatever the task force wants.
The link is fine. I just have to
right.
get in
Okay,
and
great.
spend the time with it.
All right,
No, I
fair
don't-
enough. So,
I-
go ahead. I'm sorry, Bob.
No, I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think Dom and Rick have the ability to post anything to our public website. So they send it to Callie?
Yep. So I just have
Okay.
I
Great.
think I have a question if I could. Dom, you're all right? I just have a question so as we get to the scheduling and the print and, and obviously from Rance and MCP's position as well, what we had asked previously is prioritization, I mean, PSAPs first, dispatch centers. Is there, if the task force would guide us there, that would be helpful because, once we start, seeking coordination to visit, with, to do our site visits, MCP site visits, having that priority, and then support from the task force that, that we've got our team together. We're going to become, we could put a draft letter for you all to consider, but outreach to the community so that they know we're coming, what we're going to be looking for, and for you to prioritize would be helpful. I mean, we might not be able to meet the prioritization because of schedule conflicts, but having that prioritization, I think, would be beneficial because in seeking the information that's going to be required, we're going to have to tee that up and communicate with them and let them know what we need. And there may be I'll let Rand speak for himself, but the survey and what information we're wanting, we're going to have to give them a list of that information in advance. So all that needs to be we need to think about that now so that we could quick start that aspect of the data collection aspect of the project.
I think that this is going to be the first of many small subgroups that we should put into a task groups that do a task, not a quorum. So put together Jim, because he has the expertise of a dispatch center, and perhaps 1 or 2 other members of the task force to work with you guys, with Televate and with Rance, to create that prioritization list and go through a letter and however it is we're going to approach these centers. But I can't see working all that out here in public session. That just is going to take a lot more time.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, I just wanted to tee it up as an action item so that we have that list that as an action item for us to do.
Okay.
I would be happy to go through the list and sort of come up with my idea of priorities and forward it to Jim for his review and see if he agrees.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and it
Okay.
can be an
Yeah, and I-
asynchronous work group. It can be all done over email, but it just
Sure.
can't be
Right.
a quorum of the task force members. So if
Right.
you and
Right.
Jim and either Barb or Ron want to work on that as a task, we do the work, goes away, the next task comes up, and we drive
Right.
on.
I see Rance's
so we've
hand
captured
is
that.
up.
Yep.
Rance, before I go to you, Ron, are you interested in working with Jim and Paul on this prioritization? Are you able to do that?
I am. I'm a little time limited until after April 17th, but I will attempt to give my input. Sure.
Okay. So it sounds to me like we've kind of established that task group, right? So Paul, Jim, and Ron, and certainly if you need anything from me or Jen, let us know. We just can't all meet at the same time. So, okay. And Rick, I think I cut you off. Did you have something more to say on this?
I think I covered it the way that we've all, your exchange. I'm content, and I think Rance certainly has something to contribute.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Rance.
That's okay. I appreciate it. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just waiting my turn to bring that in. Rick hit it pretty much right on the head. What we will do, so you can understand MCP side of that, there is a lot of that information that we will put out prior to us actually coming on site. So there's a lot of checklists, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of things that we can actually send electronically, which is where we'll work with Telebate, Rick and Dom, to be able to get that out. And that was actually a good point that Dom brought up. If there is a prioritization, if there's something we want to hit first, or we want to hit higher than something else, then sure, we want to know that up front, especially before we come on site. However, there's a lot of data that we can gather. We can get out to the entities to go ahead and start filling that information out, and we'd like to actually usually get a lot of that back before we show up on site. Excuse me. Gives us a little bit of a time to, when we get that data back, that we can start analyzing that data a little bit up front. Then we're on site. Then we're having these discussions with all the various stakeholders, and that just helps us to be able to set that up a little bit better. So just wanted to reiterate, we're working with Dom and Telebate and bringing that information out to the stakeholders.
Great.
And I'll just add to that. What we'll do, my recommendation is that these will be action items. Here's the priority. We sent out the request, or it's sent out by the task force, or a member of the task force. Either way, it's done, by the task force, project management team, or by others. And this is what we need. And then we can begin tracking who's providing it back, so that we have a ongoing list of what we've received and where we may have a bottleneck, so that, if we ask once, we ask twice, I think asking a third time might be better coming from the task force or whatever, but we can sort that out. We know that, responsiveness from the Vermont stakeholders is going to be outstanding on this. And so whatever, where we just want to be sure we're tracking it. So all that'll be, documented, so that we track it along the way, what we requested, what we received, and so forth. So, but that'll be our process to make sure that we're keeping everyone informed about where we are and where we're going to next.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Anything else on project updates or these action items? All right, looks like we are ready to move on then to the next agenda item, which is the Budget Adjustment Act update. So last week, Callie distributed a section of the final Budget Adjustment Act for this year, which included some changes related to the task force. Some we were expecting, like removing the limitation to a particular year for pilot projects and so on. And some that I would say we were not expecting, but we definitely need to take a look at. So I'm hoping everybody has had a chance to review it. I'm going to share my screen to make sure we're looking at the same thing. Okay, so sorry for the scrolling. I can no longer see you, so if you need to interrupt me, feel free. We sent the relevant pages out to you, and I'm going to zero in. We asked you to zero in to section 4 at the bottom of the section. At the bottom of the second page, and this is where some of the changes occurred that I think we ought to discuss. So the intent, the language around the intent of the General Assembly was updated. So now it reads, in order to extract the greatest value from the limited state and federal dollars currently available for public safety communications modernization, it is the intent of the General Assembly that all such funding is expended in an efficient and complementary way. And then it goes on to say that the Commissioner of Public Safety shall seek to draw and deploy the $9 million in congressionally directed spending to support the transition to the new statewide system in a manner that coordinates with and advances, and new words here are, to the greatest extent possible, the public safety communications system developed by the Public Safety Communications Task Force. The word in the next line, the word consult has been changed to promptly inform. The commissioner will promptly inform the task force as the federal parameters for expending the funds become available and as the commissioner develops and, if necessary, revises the plan. The commissioner shall solicit recommendations from the task force regarding the plan, including any revisions, the implementation schedule, and specific expenditures. And I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see you and point out in a nutshell, at least how my brain has organized this information is Act 78 originally directed the commissioner to consult with the task force on the plans for that $9 million, which she has done. And she has also been keeping us informed as the parameters around that spending, that grant program has evolved. But I think that the key that I zeroed in on is the new part about the commissioner soliciting recommendations from the task force regarding the plan. My understanding is the commissioner intends to solicit those recommendations today at this meeting. So the question becomes, what will the recommendations from the task force be, and how might we best develop those recommendations? So I have a lot of thoughts around all this, but I'm interested first in other task force members' interpretations, views, questions, concerns about the way the language is now written. So who would like to share?
I guess I will. Barb, you've heard my thoughts before, but I don't see that this new language is really a huge change. Yeah, I think it gives the task force maybe more opportunity or repeated opportunities to weigh in on the plan for spending the 9 million, but it's not really substantially different. But I will say for myself that I don't feel, there's no feeling about it. I'm not qualified to comment on whether or not the plan as it's currently written is the best possible use of that 9 million or not. I mean, I think with the possible exception of Ron, probably none of us really are knowledgeable enough down in the weeds of whether or not the spending plan is the best possible use. My understanding is that the department is in the process of negotiating a contract with someone to do a review of that $9 million spending plan, and that until I see the results of that, a subject matter expert has looked at this plan and said, yes, this is appropriate. I guess I'm not prepared to offer any comments on the spending plan.
Okay. What do others think?
Well, I'll speak up here, I guess. As far as
Okay, Jim.
I'm concerned, I agree with Paul on this. I don't think the changes in the legislation really make a whole lot of difference to us at this point. It does give us a few more chances at review, but that's about it. As far as the details, a few of the things I think are being spent in the right areas. I can't speak to some of the other items in the plan.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ron or Mike, your thoughts?
So, I mean, my thoughts on this are, I'm with both of those guys. I think that the language is a little bit more flexible and benefits us. How much that the perceived benefit is, I think, depends on how much of a conspiracy theorist you are and how much you think that there are things going on behind the scenes to remove that oversight from us. So, not being a lawyer, I could not say, what the true benefit of that language is, but it looks a little bit better than it did before. So I would say just go with it.
Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same vein as Ron. So I think this is probably a good move.
All right. I'm gonna throw my
Barb,
into
can
the
I
ring now.
jump in on?
Jen, go ahead. Yes, you are allowed a voice in this conversation. Go right ahead.
No, I have no
Sorry.
voice in that part of it. I want to just make sure folks are clear where we are. We have a We are actively in the middle of securing a contract with someone to do a review of the plan. The contract has been approved by internal systems, the PAT process, whatever these different procurement things are. And I expect to see it literally any day for my signature. So it is a very short-term contract, weeks long, not months long, with somebody who has particular expertise in the COPS technology funding stream, as well as this as a subject matter expert in the field of LMR technology and related areas. And so the task is going to be for that person to apply the knowledge of the COPS technology funding stream, to review and be fully up to speed on any applicable statutory language, Act 78, and now the BAA from this year, as well as the plan and the proposed timeline, and to offer their opinion to us, the people paying them through the grant, as to whether or not this is the best way to spend the money in the timeline allowed, presuming that we get the 12-month extension, which is where we are right now, is waiting to hear back on a 12-month extension. So there will be independent eyes that will be paid for through the grant. So they are working on behalf of the Department of Public Safety, but they are being hired because they have no dog in the fight, and to give us independent feedback on that. Obviously, whatever they come up with for feedback will be shared out with the task force, so that you folks can decide if you want to have a second opinion or if this is an adequate review, etc. But that's where we stand on the CDS grant. Is it has been resubmitted to the feds with a request for a 12-month extension of the timeline. We have a project manager for the grant already hired and under contract, and we are very close within days of having this reviewer hired for a short hit contract of approximately 4 weeks.
Jen, I thought it was an 18-month extension that you were looking for. Did I mishear that?
Oh yeah, I want a 24-monther, but
I see. Okay.
The folks assisting us at the DOJ side said no. They said you can put in for a 12-month, and there's a remote possibility that as you get close to the end of that performance period, assuming you get it, that you could request more time, but that an 18-month, which is what we had intended to ask for, is not generally approved. So you'll improve your odds of the back and forth, sending it back and forth to us by asking for 12 months up front. So we chose to follow the guidance they were giving us.
Okay, got it. All right, well, thank you for that. That helps kind of bring all of this together. So I do still have a few other thoughts that really haven't been spoken yet. So we did, of course, the task force just hired mission critical partners to develop multiple potential plans for a statewide public safety communications system. And of course, we also have the support of Rick and Dom at Televate as our project management team and trusted advisor. I know that I have several questions related to the CDS plan itself, and these are them at a high level, right? I would like to understand. Let me step back and say, I agree with Paul and the others who have suggested that perhaps not all of us have the depth of knowledge to really be able to answer these questions that I have or understand the impacts of the current CDS plan to the extent that we ought to if we're going to be formulating recommendations, right? So I would like to understand what of the work that is outlined in the congressionally directed spending plan would be considered foundational. And by that, I mean, what of that work could reasonably be expected to be a part of any or all plans that Mission Critical is working to develop? So what would be common really to all of these plans? Kelly, I see that Michael Wright just joined the executive session.
Yeah, I'm sending him a note.
Okay. So what of the work is considered foundational? And then what of the work would be considered restrictive. And by that, I mean, if that work was completed and all those dollars were invested in the projects or particular projects that are outlined in that plan, would they restrict the mission critical planning work to a particular course of action? And if so, how would that course of action kind of align with industry standards and best practices, right? So maybe that's a direction we would want to go in. But I think we need to be very careful not to recommend an action that restricts the planning work that Mission Critical is going to be doing. So those are my two things. What's foundational? What could be restrictive? I want to understand that better. And then, you know, the final question, I guess, is what recommendations could we be making to the commissioner about the use of these funds? I would throw out the idea that we have Rick and Dom at Televate who could help us sift through that information and understand what's foundational and what's restrictive and why. And so I would suggest that in addition to reviewing the independent reviewer that Jen is hiring, Department of Public Safety is hiring to review the plan from the perspective of the Department of Public Safety, I would suggest that we ask Rick and Dom to also review that plan, perhaps with those questions in mind, from the perspective of the task force, and to see where we align, where we don't, or, you know, what the results would be. It'd be give us the ability, I think, to have a more informed discussion about this. So I will toss that idea out there. And what do others think about that particular idea?
I agree with that. I'd also be willing to take a look at that plan if somebody can point me to the most comprehensive and up-to-date copy to see if there's anything in it that I see as a red flag. But yeah, I mean, I think we need to put in perspective that whatever that work is being done has to dovetail with what we're doing.
Right.
Or
Okay,
at least, or at least not work in a counter direction to what we're doing. Yeah.
Okay. So Ron, I heard you say you agree with the approach of asking Televate for assistance. Paul, Jim, Mike, Jen, thoughts on that?
I guess my thought is I don't want to have too many. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's no such thing as having too many sets of eyes, but I don't want to pay too many different vendors billable hours to look at the same plan and come up with the same conclusion. So I guess I'm not sure that I would want to have MCP do it at this point, but since Televate is our trusted advisor for the task force, it would make sense to have them look at it, yes.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Jim Mack, what do you think?
I can go with that. There used to be a copy of the plan on the website. There's nothing there now.
I think I saw it this morning.
We'll get the update. Remember, we just resubmitted last week, so let me get the updated with the request for the extension of the timeline, etc.
Okay. Mike Dunges, do you have any concerns about asking Televate? Is that a direction you think we should go?
No, I don't think I have concerns about asking Televate. I like the way you presented it, Barbara. I think that I was having a discussion with a couple of people about, you know, what levels of the words I've been using is like kind of like overlap or where we can share those resources when this is done. And I think it's important to know. I do not think, I mean, I would love to be able to see that all of that CDS money goes to stuff that could be used for both, but I don't think that's feasible. I don't think that they're without having a plan. Just as I continue to discuss, the timing of this is just what it is. And I think that the efforts are being put into use that money to the best of its ability so that those places where that overlap or the shared resources can come together is primarily what I'm looking for to be the biggest value. So having Televate kind of evaluate where that overlap is probably not a bad idea.
Okay, that's good. Michael Wright, I see you've joined us. I'm not sure if you came in at the beginning of the conversation or where you are and what you've heard. We're talking about whether we would ask Televate to help us evaluate, well, help us develop recommendations for Commissioner Morrison about the use of the congressionally directed spending, specifically about the plan that's already out there right now. Do you have any thoughts you want to share on that?
No, I'm a little bit behind, so I'll catch up. Sorry, it's been a crazy week. We've been crazy busy and filling some sick calls. So I'll go with whatever the group decides at this point, and then I'll catch up.
Okay. And I did have Paul and I actually had a conversation with Televate last week to see if they even had the bandwidth to take on this project if the task force decided to go that direction. So I'm going to seek input now from Dom and or Rick about your capacity to do this work. I would think it would be good if it aligned with the timeline that Jen is looking at for her independent reviewer. So is that like 3 weeks, a month, Jen? You think that work would be wrapped up, or?
From the time we have a signed contract and the work begins,
Yeah,
I would say it's 4-ish weeks. I'm guessing. I'm state government never fails to surprise me with where things get bogged down. So I would say, 4 weeks outside 6 weeks till we have a report to review, even if it's just a draft initial report. That would be my guess.
okay.
Sometimes I'm overly optimistic, Barb.
Yeah. I think we all fall into that trap sometimes, and then we're
You just
jolted back
haven't-
to reality.
You just haven't worked in state government quite long enough, Jen.
Right. So Rick and Dom, having listened to all of this conversation with a 4 to 6 week sort of preliminary anyway timeline, is this doable?
Yes, certainly from our perspective, we do have additional resources that with correct expertise that we can apply to this, and we can certainly help out within that schedule.
And go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, and we are very familiar with the contents of what's being pursued. So we have reviewed the initial thinking of the state regarding the spending of that funding. So we understand exactly so far what they're looking for. I mean, we don't know the details behind it, but the high level of what they're asking for makes sense. And so to us, how it aligns with with our program, we're not quite sure yet because we don't really have those results, but we see no reason why they can't be and shouldn't be aligned. I think we can certainly support the task force in reviewing that and providing that, that recommendations for your consideration.
Okay,
Hey,
and do you
Barb?
have, 1 second, Stephen, please, 1 second. Televate, do you have all of the information you need from us to undertake the work? I'm thinking we probably ought to write down like a scope of what we're looking for.
If you're trying to double check the work of the person we're hiring, we'll just give him, once the contract is executed, we'll give them everything that we have. That lays out the scope of the work that we've asked the reviewer to do, plus the plan that we resubmitted to DOJ, so that everybody's working from the same set of documents.
Same scope of work. Although I don't know that you've asked your consultant to identify what's foundational and what is restrictive in that sense. And I think that's an important component. And I do want to clarify, I don't believe we are asking Televate to double check the work of the vendor that you are hiring. We're asking them to take their set of eyes and look at this plan from the perspective of the task force and in the context of all of those issues that I raised a few minutes ago about foundational and restrictive. So I see that as a little bit of a distinction. So I'll put it back to Rick and Dom. What do you need from us to start the work?
I'll contribute and then Don might chime in. I think exactly what you were saying earlier. What are your requirements so that we're sure that whatever we contribute is specific to the requirements that you identify for us that you want us to follow, so that we don't come at it from a different direction. And we come from it from the direction that best suits you. So I think that the best way to do that would be for you to provide an email or however stating these are the requirements. And so whatever we do will be based on your needs. And if, along the way, if it evolves, we'll share that together. But that would be
Okay.
the best way for us to know, so that we don't provide you with something that isn't what you need.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll kind of put together a summary of my thoughts on this, where we are. So incorporating the scope of work that will be in the DPS contract and these other questions perhaps, and then I'll circulate to Paul and Jen, and we'll come up with an agreed upon approach. Does that make sense?
I don't think we need to include the scope of work that is going to be done by DPS as expert. I think we just need to know, is it going to fit in with our operation here? Which is what you asked. What is foundational and what isn't?
So focus
That's all I
on
think,
that.
Don. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, Barb, can you take some public comment on this topic? Because I've devoted a lot of time on this.
I would really like to finish the conversation with the task force first.
I know, but I'm trying to persuade the task force that you should have Mission Critical do this work.
Stephen, please stop. Are we, anything else from task force members on sort of this plan that to circulate the scope of work, if you will, for Televate? Jim has added that it should focus on this foundational restrictive sort of analysis. Okay.
May I ask a question for the team?
Yeah. Yes, Rick?
So, Barb, you said a minute ago that you'd circulate your draft requirements to Paul and to Jen. And I just want to be sure that would you be in compliance, the task force be in compliance? Of course, Jen is, co-chair of the task force, but by including Jen in that decision, because I don't know if we have to have a separation of responsibilities. And I'm not trying to create an issue. I'm trying to avoid an issue. And I just wanted to, just
You're not going to
ask
get
that
any
question.
argument from me, Rick. No argument. Keep it over there.
Okay.
Yeah,
So should we?
I'm not saying, that's I
Should
just
we
want to be
leave-
sure that go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was thinking so Paul and I could work on developing this. And do we want to include one more task force member, or task force comfortable with Paul and I developing it? I'm seeing a nod, couple nods. Okay. All right. I will.
I hope my request didn't create an issue, but I just want to be sure that we can potentially avoid someone suggesting that we created a conflict in doing that.
Okay. Excellent then. Those are my marching orders then. I'll put something together, Paul, and get it over to you, and we can hammer this out and
Okay.
Get it figured out. Okay, so Stephen, what would you like to add on this topic?
I would like to add that Televate was hired as a project manager. The topics that you're asking, the congressionally directed spending, is to support the transition to statewide regional public safety communications. So that's really an analysis that has to be done by Mission Critical, because they're the ones that are developing the statewide system plan and strategy, not by a project manager who has every incentive to deliver you what they hope you want to hear. This is clearly a technical analysis of how certain aspects of the CDS program plan, which I haven't seen the latest version of, will support or conflict with the statewide transition to regional public safety communications. And it's not Televate's scope of work. Televate's scope of work is project management and advisor. And I would argue strongly, vehemently, that this is Mission Critical's analysis, not Televate's.
Thank you for your comments, Stephen. I'm going to throw it back to the task force. Is there any other discussion on this topic? Or are we good to proceed as we just discussed?
I'm good
Okay.
with what we've just discussed.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Going once, going twice. Looks like we'll move on then, as discussed, and we will move on to new business. Is there any new business from task force members for today? Paul, go ahead.
It's maybe not really new business, but I don't really know where else to ask it. Two things. I just wanted to follow up on something Stephen said earlier about the legal counsel that we're trying to engage. And I guess I just wanted to, he mentioned something about public information requests, and that was not my intent. And once we get that legal counsel on staff, it was not my understanding that we were going to use them to screen public information requests. That's something that, I don't know, something we hadn't thought of maybe or hadn't discussed, but I don't know for sure where we're at with getting that legal counsel, but it was not my understanding that they would be the recipient or the keeper of records for any public records requests for the task force. And then my second thing is just a question, I still don't seem to have access to our SharePoint site. So who can I contact about that?
Email me and I'll get it to
Okay.
to the ADS team.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Paul, we can speak more about your first item in executive
Okay.
session.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else from task force members under new business? Okay. We do have, as Jen just mentioned, some items to discuss in executive session. So I will take us through the usual two-step process here. I'll make a motion that the task force find that sharing information about bidder responses and contract negotiations publicly would put the task force at a substantial disadvantage in making a decision about awarding a contract or contracts. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Paul. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of making this finding, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I see all hands are up. I don't see Mike. Did he leave us? Mike Dunges?
He's got his
Yeah,
hand.
there he is.
Sorry,
There he
I
is.
was slow on the button.
All right. Callie, looks like that motion has passed, correct? Okay. Next step then, I'll make a motion that we move into executive session for the purpose of discussing one or more contracts and that Televate be included in that discussion.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. All in favor of moving into executive session, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye. Excellent. I see all hands are up. We will see task force members in the executive session link. And Callie, you can let everybody know when we're coming back into public session. Excellent. See you in the other link.